Hi, and welcome to Motivational Monday. Today, I want to talk about a subject that is sometimes difficult to talk about for me. A couple weeks ago, I had alluded to it being one of two topics that were um, scary almost to share and be transparent about. This week, I want to talk about a love lost and share openly my experiences with miscarrying twins. The reason I do want to talk about it is because through this experience, I realized how much of a taboo subject it is. And unfortunately, no one talks about it. Um, Everyone talks about their children, and everyone talks about, oh, my kid did this, oh, my kid did that. But very rarely do people talk about the children that they may have lost. And it wasn't until I became open about my miscarriage that people then shared, oh, I struggled as well. Oh, I've lost children as well. And I kind of want to question, why are we so afraid to talk about the subject of miscarriage when it's such a critical topic to discuss, and it's such a topic that can change you forever. I don't think I'll ever be the same. I've always had empathy for people who have suffered with miscarriages, and even abortions, because that, even though it's a decision, it's still a difficult decision to make, and you still deal with the aftermath of that for forever. And I've always been empathetic to people who have struggled with fertility and things along those lines. Um, but there's a new level of empathy when you've gone through it yourself and you understand exactly how it feels to fall in love with a child you'll never see again. Um, for those who are around people who are still grieving a miscarriage or the loss of their children, um, it is difficult to show that support sometimes because you never really know what to say. You never really know how to say it. And it can be challenging at times to feel like this person that I care about is hurting. I don't know what to do. Um, all I can share is from my perspective, in understanding that the things that hurt me, even though they may have had good intention, um, I've heard things like, you're young, you can have more kids. While the intent may be nice, it doesn't replace the fact that I've lost two sons in 1 month. Um, there is no replacing that, or it's all in God's plan. While that may be true, it's really not comforting in that moment, or everything happens for a reason. Again, it may be true, and I do firmly believe that, but it doesn't heal the pain that's there. And sometimes you have to just understand that they're not going to believe that really and truly until you're on the other side of that pain and that hurt. When you're deep inside of the loss and the grief, you don't want to hear cliche. You don't want to hear, oh, it'll get better. You don't want to hear any of that. In fact, you probably don't want to hear anything. What I would suggest to people who care about someone who's hurting, I would suggest, listen. Listen without judgment. Listen without advice, unless they've asked you for that advice. Um, the worst thing you can do is force your opinion or force your advice down their throat when they haven't even asked and you haven't even listened to hear what they feel. Because it's one of those things where everyone goes through it and feels it differently, and everyone needs something different. One person may need space to grieve. One person may need love and support. There is no cookie cutter response to grief and loss, and you can't assume that how you would handle that situation is how another person would. Ask them, What do you need from me? How can I help you? Do you want space, or do you want me to be around? Do you want me to talk about it around you, or do you want me to avoid the topic? And if they do want to talk about it, just let them talk. Just let them talk. You don't have to interject. You don't have to share your story. You don't have to share your advice. You don't have to share your feedback. Just listen. And if they ask for your advice, or if they ask for your feedback, then you share it in a non judgmental way. Um, Honestly and truly, I feel like it's the greatest heartbreak of a lifetime. And I can't even imagine um, people who have gone through multiple pregnancies and dealing with that hurt time and time again. I just couldn't even fathom um, to share my story. I was pregnant, was not planned pregnancy, but I was excited nonetheless. I found out it was twins, and let's just say I was surprised. And I was scared, and I was nervous, and I didn't know how I was going to provide for myself and two kids. And it was difficult for me to adjust, but I loved my sons with my whole heart, and I would have done absolutely anything for them. Um, I would have died for them, literally. I would have died if it meant that they could live. Um, and on my 25th birthday, I found out that one of my sons had been dead for 6 weeks. Um, and also on my birthday, I found out that the son who was still living at that time, um, there were concerns about the liquid in his brain, the fluid in his brain. And I had to have tests done and MRIs done and um, everything imaginable. And it was really complicated, and it was difficult, and it was challenging, and it was so much at one time. Um, and after all the tests and after the MRI results came back and everything like that, the doctors explained to me the extremity of his brain um, damage. Basically, he had suffered brain damage as a result of the first miscarriage. So, because they were identical, they had shared a placenta, and the placenta stopped feeding the surviving twin for whoever, I don't know how long, but because of that, he lost blood going to his brain. Um, and just listening to him explain the life that my son would live, I knew it would be selfish of me to bring him into this world simply to suffer. He would have needed 24-hour care. He would have needed brain surgery immediately, lung surgery within his first year of life. He probably wouldn't be able to walk. He'd be able to see, but he wouldn't be able to comprehend what he's seeing. He would need to wear diapers for the rest of his life. All of this simply because of the aftermath of losing his brother. And I made the most difficult decision in my life to deliver. I delivered both of my sons at about 5.5 months. I got to see them, and I got to hold them. And I have pictures, and that's the extent of what I have. Um, it was a very challenging time for me, and I still process it, and I still grieve from it. Um, but I share that to share with you all um, that it's not always easy. And there's so many people who deal with miscarriages and the grief of losing a child who don't even say it. Who don't even say it. It had been months before I told anyone outside of my close friends and family. Months. There are still some people who have no idea. Um, And after delivering my sons, I started a brand new job 3 days later. Um, and it taught me how strong I was. It taught me that if I could survive that, the greatest heartbreak of a lifetime, and be able to continue to live and to continue to create a life that they would have been proud of, that taught me how strong I really, really was. Um, and to be able to get back to life. And although sometimes I regret not taking that time, I had to do what I had to do. I really did. And I had to find a way to move forward when just all hope felt lost. And I had to take things one day at a time, and sometimes 1 hour at a time. Um, there were times I had to go and cry in the bathroom, and there were times where it was just too much. And there are still times where it's absolutely too much to bear. Um, but in those moments, I just have to understand that it was the right decision for my son. And it was in losing my other son, I had no control in that. There was nothing I could have done to have prevented either loss. And I just have to accept that that's what happened. And as much as I may have tried to um, be healthy and eat and sleep and exercise and minimize my stress levels, it just wasn't enough. Um, but I do firmly believe there is a reward and a purpose for that loss. I do firmly believe that any loss you encounter, um, there's a reason for it, and it will not make sense at the time. It will not, but there will come a time where you say, okay, I get it now. For me, that moment was learning my strength. And for me, that was learning I can get through anything. Because for someone who's always wanted kids, to lose two the first time I'm pregnant was the most difficult thing I could have ever imagined. I would have never thought I could get through something like that. But I did. And I am. And every day I'm making a conscious effort to make my life better. Um, and I have a greater sense of empathy for those who are struggling with it, and for those who have difficulty and all of the above. So I would like to end today's video by sharing a poem that I wrote for my sons. The title of it is Thank You for Choosing Me. You sat in heaven and looked down on earth. You saw my heart and knew you'd always have a home. I wonder if you knew our love story would be brief, but even still, you chose me. So many questions, I'm left wondering why. But every time I go to cry, I think about your son. You taught me real love. You helped me to grow. I wish I could return that love, but back to heaven, you had to go. Thank you for the growth that you caused. Thank you for your love. You changed my life forever. Thank you for choosing me from above.